Right, I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see, provided that this allows me to do that. I think Neela has me set up properly here. Yes. Right. I should never doubt that Niale is on top of it. All right. Well, it's 2:31, so we'll go ahead and just get started. So these are the realestatestats.com that we look at every week. And by county, we just kind of go through the first couple of counties here. And it looks like there's definitely a dip in active listings this past week. Active under contract is actually kind of holding steady and coming soon. And again, this is Fulton County. Coming soons are down slightly as well. Pendings up to 225. So that's encouraging. Holds 28. So more people are putting their property on hold again. And then 80 withdrawals versus 122 the previous week. So it looks like we're back into a normal range there. And then we've been watching expireds to see if these go up every week. And you see November 7th, this is probably actually happened on the 1st, but 139 expireds, only in the 30s during the month. So that's good. And then closed are way down, 176 versus high 200s and 300s in the past couple of weeks. So basically, fewer things are closing and coming on the market. So I feel like this is part of, there's two things happening. One is obviously the market has softened, but number two, I feel like it's also part of the back to the normal seasonality of November 15th, everything starts to slow down and then it picks up again after January 5th or so. Any thoughts on that, Paul?
No, I agree. I'm feeling it actually. I'm starting to see a little bit of a boost the past couple of weeks, almost in anticipation of the 15th coming. Not that I knew that was the plan, but more people talking about, well, if I get it now under contract, I can get in before the end of the year, before the holidays, or
right.
At least be binding prior to Thanksgiving.
Right, and that's I think what buyers try to focus on is not having their Thanksgiving weekend out looking at properties.
Right.
So, and certainly, Lord knows sellers want the same thing as well. Quick look at DeKalb, pretty much similar, decrease the number of actives, increase the number of under contracts again, but coming soon's just a few, pendings holding kind of steady, but if you skip down to close are way down. So, and that's part of that is time of the month it is. People tend to close on the 15th and the 30th or the end of month. So I think you'll always see a little bit of a dip in the middle couple of weeks of the month. And then Cobb is the last one we'll look at. And again, dip in actives, holding steady on active under contracts, pretty steady on coming soons, and closed are only slightly down. So definitely more down compared to October, same time at 208, but still things are still selling, just not as quickly and not as often. So,
but I would still say I would expect to see these numbers, at least more properties pending, I would assume, next month, or more closing, I should say. Yeah. I felt the last couple of weeks, I think with the last inflation numbers and everything softening a lot, I think a lot of buyers saw that as an opportunity to say, ooh, I'm going to jump in on this. And I think the messaging that a lot of agents are saying of, hey, this might be false, right? Like numbers are going down, but it's still going to be going up in long term. Right. So I think people are starting to feel, okay, well, there's a softening of interest rate. I don't want to be in the crowd as this interest rate maybe goes even lower. So, and obviously that's the language we should be telling people now too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And December is typically, most top producers see an uptick in their business in December because a lot of people want to close before the end of the year. So, right. Which means if their closings are up in December, then they're probably going to go under contract between now and, December 7th. Right. All right, so that's the real estate stats. Couple of things here. I don't know if you've used these, Paul, but these are the sort of statistical reports that you can get from FMLS if you just go to reports. The statistical reports, it sort of brings this up. You can say what month you want to view them for, and then there's any number of reports that you can pull up. So I just pulled up some inventory just so we can kind of take a look at inventory. So this is inventory from November 2018 till now. So past 4 years, 2018, 2019, 20, 21, 22, right? So if you can see, like, we're still not even at pre-pandemic level of inventory. So while it feels like a lot compared to what we've had, I feel like perspective is everything. And when you look at it in the long term, let's look at month supply here. So supply's up, but compared to what, right? Compared to what it's been and during the pandemic, yes, from 1.1 at the lowest, definitely up at 2.4, but still not even back to where we were in April of 2020 as the pandemic hit. So I feel like that is sort of good context for the sky's not falling. We do have more inventory, but it's not kind of crazy.
Does this include new construction?
It does. This is everything.
Okay.
Well, it includes new construction in FMLS. This is FMLS, so it's pulling directly from
Right. Okay. I know we're going to talk about new construction later.
Yeah. Let's see. And then, so let's start with mortgage rates, because mortgage rates dropped last week. They dropped from, I think it's the article uses national figures of like 7.08% to 6.6% last week. Why was that, Paul?
Because the CPI, Consumer Price Index, fell. The vibe of the country, probably not vibe, probably isn't the right word, but everyone's thoughts are that we may have hit peak inflation.
Yep.
I think it peaked at like 8.6 or 8.9, and we are now down to 7.225, something like that.
Yeah, like
historically, the average is 7.18. So we're kind of right in the historical average of where interest rates are. And so, the stock market and most markets and the media react to little things, like little and big things, obviously. But typically markets are really moving based on feelings of where we're going rather than where we actually are, right, where we might end up. And so when everyone said, oh, we might be peaking, well, that means that things are going to get better and we should start going and buying houses as well. And so the mortgage rates are going to soften for that.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's 6.6%. If you have a 2-1 buy down or a 3-2-1 buy down, you could be starting your loan off as a buyer as low as 3.6%. So definitely not a bad deal for buyers getting into the market. So I think I know a lot of our agents and at the in-town office have seen a big uptick in activity since last week when the rates went down, with buyers calling back in. Have you seen that as well?
Well, what's interesting to me is yes, to answer your question, yes. I don't talk rate buy downs. Yes, I do. I speak in those in maybe one-on-one conversations with individuals. I'd rather start the conversation now of, hey, we're at 6.6, it's down. And like I just said, if the markets react to the feeling, then I'm going to introduce the feeling to my buyers and my audience, if you will, that this is a time that you can take advantage of what might be coming. So get yourself checked out, because what I don't like hearing people say is this whole marry the house, state the rate thing. And it gives this perspective to buyers that they should maybe stretch themselves, because right now is a great time to buy. Or the rates are only going to be here for a little while. When they drop back down to 3%, which I would not expect that anytime soon, right, they can refinance. And if it doesn't happen, they're going to be in trouble. And so, buy down conversations always get me a little weird.
Okay, I get it. It's a tool, but it's also, you're very focused on education. So I think educating our buyers and sellers is what we need to be doing right now, for sure.
Yeah. And tools are great. I don't want to knock a tool, of course.
But also to jump on your point about the markets. I mean, last week the stock market went way up. It had like a great run last week, and that's because of the economic news and people feeling optimistic. So just another indicator that that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So this article is Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, predicts that home prices won't experience a major decline and could actually rise slightly in 2023 if mortgage rates remain kind of steady at 7%. I was looking to see if there was I don't see a copy of this slide, but there's I looked at a recent presentation that he did, and they're expecting a very, very slight decline, like less than 1% decline on one end. It's sort of like there was a range of different economic prognosticators and what they think the prices are going to do next year. And it went from like 0.2 something to increasing by 4. So, no one's predicting a big dip in prices. So that's the good news. And let's see, let's go to this one. This was from the Atlanta Business Chronicle on Friday. And this one actually talks about this guy says, I would think that the Southeast is going to outperform the rest of the country. And they're talking about how out West, they're already seeing price declines. And they think that a year from now, we're going to be about where we are today. So they don't see like a massive decline coming to, and that's someone from the Pulte Group. But they don't see a massive decline coming to the market. Did you read that article, Paul, or any thoughts on it?
I did not get a chance to read that specific one, but I'd be curious to learn if it's because of all of those people on the West Coast coming over here and the influx of a lower price point, a more approachable market. And that's why it hasn't really slowed down. The demand for the market is keeping prices more elevated.
Yeah, well, and they've been saying since the pandemic started, there's been a big influx into the Sun Belt, right? For buyers coming from other states, particularly more expensive states, and from New York and Chicago to all across the West Coast, coming to Atlanta and Texas, and having a lot more house for the money here than they're used to.
Right.
So,
not to mention commercial investors.
Say it again.
Not to mention like large investors picking up, hundreds of units of homes in one purchase.
Yeah, I mean, the Southeast is one of the largest. In fact, Atlanta is one of the largest markets for institutional investors holding single-family rental property. So,
yeah, the Sun Belt you just referenced is a big focus right now for this. So
yeah, for sure. The interesting thing will be is do they start selling, putting those houses back into the market at some point?
Right.
If the return is diminishing.
Right. It's weird because like leaving real estate for a second, I'm a buy and hold investor, but then going back into real estate, I'm also a buy and hold investor. I don't do flips and I don't do day trading. Right. And so what's happening now in the market for me, I don't care about. I'm not going to sell my stock and I'm not going to sell my home. Right. But then you've got the Kramers, the market peers out there. I wonder if there's an equivalent of that in the real estate market that's like telling these hedge funds or these large investors, okay, now sell 700 homes. Okay, now buy another one. It's like we were speculating over real estate, and it's like, can we just give it back to the consumer and let them live in a house, please?
Right.
And you guys can go focus on the stock market. So.
Seriously, and that's I think that's all of our hope is that inventory comes back into the market at some point. But I'm not holding my breath.
Well, what's an interesting conversation. We could probably have an entire class about this. Is that the largest population in our entire country is going to slowly start to no longer need their homes because they're going to start to die. And and I'm really happy that I can't see anybody's actual faces on the side here to see the age group of who I'm talking to. But the largest group of millennial buyers that will ever be are already in the market. So as those people get through, they're in the most prominent buying years, and all of the boomers start to go away, that large influx of transition will happen. And then the next, I think whatever's after millennials, the Gen Z.
Yep.
The next couple of years of millennials and into Gen Z is a much smaller buying population. So I actually think that in the next couple of years, we should see a very healthy level of inventory begin to slowly come back into the market.
Yeah, and I think the key is slowly. It's not going to be like a flood.
Right. No, of course. I don't think it's going to be a flood either way.
Yeah.
But going back, you had a slide earlier today that said we're not even back up to pre-inventory numbers. That's not going to happen anytime soon, because the massive rush at the beginning of the pandemic that just took all of the inventory out. And then right now, which I think we're about to talk about, is builders' confidence is waning, and so we're not. Our new construction starts has slowed significantly. Right. So if they're not building and people aren't selling and interest rates are high and people aren't buying, it's like something's got to give here.
Right.
And so
and we started in a deficit from 2008 to 2020 with having several million homes less than we should have to stay on our trajectory. So so it's going to be a long time, I think, before supply is high enough to shift the market into a massive buyer's market. Right. So this article I thought was I see it as good news that builders are starting to see a little bit of relief on their costs and their supply chain issues that they have, because they're they're still building stuff that is under contract, right? It's like they have to get all of that built and then look at what's happening for the future. And like you said, new construction is the starts have slowed, but the pace of building hasn't slowed as far as the existing stuff, the stuff that is already in motion. They're still moving forward, and they're finally starting to see some relief in lumber prices. Where they're not seeing the relief is in labor, right? So I think that's going to be the thing that keeps costs high for builders right now.
Yeah, I think that this is the conversation. I think that the conversation that buyers need to be hearing right now is the new construction conversation, because new construction, I think that's the arbitrage, right? Get in the market where new construction isn't necessarily priced at such of a premium right now. I'm closing on something in a week right now where in this community, it was like, this is the only place I want to live kind of client. The houses are being built. We missed out. We lost out twice. Then someone terminated. We were given the opportunity because I stayed in contact and we were, kind of up on the list. And my buyer had the opportunity to go look at it and say, no, I don't want this for personal reasons. And then, I tried to encourage her, like, hey, like, this is an opportunity. She said no. And I'm not trying to sell her. Let me just say that clearly, right? I'm just trying to, give her the perspective of the opportunity. And then literally 2 weeks later, they call her and say, hey, another buyer has terminated. So I think with increased rates, people being pre-approved months ago, you're starting to have these people, unfortunately, get into these situations where they're not able to close on their properties. Yeah. I'm getting emails and texts all day, every day from builders saying, hey, we're now giving agent bonuses. We're now offering these incentives. I think this is a good conversation we're having with people that says, look, new construction can be had. Because I was auctioning off houses. Sorry, I was on the auction side with buyers auctioning when they were letting lots come out. And now it's like, hey, can you come buy our house?
Right. All the builders were down to no incentives and 2.5% or 2.25% commission. Yep. And now it's 3% commission plus bonuses and buyer incentive.
DR Horton's buying down rates right now.
Yeah. Well, this was David Weekly. I just happened to pull up one that I thought of off the top of my head, and they're offering $25,000 in towards reducing closing costs, which I'm sure is intended for buy downs. So I just think it's kind of interesting how quickly the tides turn on the builders. So
it's a feelings thing.
yep,
I mean, I know that people are obviously looking at the numbers and saying where it's going, but it's emotions. They don't want to be left holding the bag.
absolutely. So let's see, we talked about the supply chain issues. We talked about that. Here it is. So the Business Chronicle has another article that came out Friday, where Atlanta housing experts expect prices to grow in 2023 and beyond. And like we said earlier, it says that last month, Metro Atlanta, here we go. Last month, Metro Atlanta recorded its fewest October home sales in more than a decade. So it was, basically the slowest October in a decade. And the metro area's median home price was down 9% from an all-time record set in June. But it's still up 8% over last year. Right. So I think this is where we have to be careful about people thinking that prices are falling.
Right.
Because people aren't losing value in a home that they bought years ago,
Yeah. Sorry. And I cut you off. I think that this is definitely, we're going to start seeing numbers now that we're into the pandemic and the peak of the pandemic has passed, or the inflation rather has hopefully passed. You're going to start seeing these statistics of saying, okay, well, compared to last year, well, you can't compare anything to last year. Right. And so, and I've seen a lot of stats where the graphs are going up, and then they peak and they fall back down. But if you look at it from a consistent, steady plane over time, we're actually exactly where we're supposed to be.
Right.
And you know exactly what I'm referencing, apparently.
Yep. So can you see that?
Yeah, average sales price.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So to your point, they've dropped, but here we're only down compared to since last March, or this past March rather. So we're still higher than everything before that. So
and as you're saying, though, seasonality wise, we'll start to pick back up beginning of January or middle of January.
Yep. And expect that spring's going to be a lot like this year, but I think we're going to be at the same rate. So probably 25 to 30% fewer sales. So it just means that the people who are getting the listings and getting the buyers have to be more skilled and be able to navigate this market and be able to have pricing conversations and value conversations, right?
Oh, for sure.
What do you think the biggest thing? No, go ahead.
I was going to say value conversations for sure, and not necessarily value in the perspective of money, right? Like let's look at what's happened from 2008 to pre-pandemic. Let's look at pandemic to where we are now. Look at all trajectories of where home ownership and the attainability of home ownership, the direction it's going. I think that there's going to be a lot of people who will jump, even if the rates are high, they are going to jump on it because they see the need for home ownership, the lack of it in the future. And unfortunately, there's just going to be people that jump on it because they think that home ownership is a required next step in their life and they're going to be making a stupid decision. But regardless of all the reasons, people are still going to be buying houses. Yeah. I love the statistic that in 2008, like you're pointing at right now, 2008, 2009, like 4.3 million people still bought and sold real estate.
Yep.
And that was tied to a housing crisis. This is not. This is just a lot of things went into it. We printed a lot of money and we had some supply stuff, everything murdered. Some people got sick and died, and now we're here.
Yep. Well, and the average person in Atlanta stays in their home 5 to 7 years. Right. So if you look at, even if they bought at the bottom in 2009 and they had to wait through 2012, if they went all the way to 2014, they made money. So if they're staying for 5 years or more, typically in real estate, you're going to be okay.
Well, and Mark, most recessions are 17 months. The average is 17. If I remember correctly, 2008 was one of the longer ones we've ever had.
Yes.
And so I would say that most recessions are only 1 to 2 years. So if you're buying now, where we are likely already, because apparently we can change the definition of a recession, right? We're already in this moment where some people are saying we're already there. So if you're buying now, things are going to get better. And if you're selling now and you can't, like I just had my first expired listing last week or earlier this month. And for whatever reason that happened, the encouragement has been that in spring, it will become more of a seasonal market again, or it is shifting already towards the seasonal market. So then, March and April is we need to be talking, or sorry, January, February, we need to be talking for March, April lists.
To get on the market in March or April. Yeah. I think that's the deal. That the market is slowed down, but it's not stopped, right? That's the sort of message. And I think your point about the perspective, like always maintaining that perspective of where are we today and where are we, compared to, 5, 10, 15 years ago, and having the ability to kind of pull back a little bit and go, oh, over time, real estate's a good investment, right?
Yeah, and for me, I love these kind of conversations around these topics to talk about a larger generalized national movement, right? And then we bring it down to a smaller in the state of Georgia, and then in Atlanta, and then DeKalb and Fulton and Cobb and all of those things. But that's still not small enough. Like we need to be talking to individual people and what their goals are, because honestly, none of this in front of me matters. Like, with all due respect to this 30 minutes that happens every single month, this is necessary for us to know. It leads us to give better perspective to the individual on what they need to be doing for their lives. So yes, very important to know this, but we got to get granular with people and talk about what their goals are and what I would say their experiences have been themselves from January of 2016 to now.
Absolutely. Well, and getting back to another point you made, people, no matter what the interest rates are, no matter how bad the economy is, people still buy homes, right? So I think it's really digging in to life events, right? So like when we're talking to our sphere, we're talking to prospective new clients, what's going on in their life? Because if you ask forward questions, ask about their family, occupation, recreation, dreams, all that stuff, people still are getting engaged, getting married, getting divorced, getting new jobs, getting transferred, like becoming empty nesters. People are still doing all those things regardless of interest rates and regardless of the market. So I think doubling down on your conversations, making sure you're really listening for those life events with people, I think would be well advised right now.
So during the pandemic, everybody got this pause and they got this money that they were given, and a lot of savings increased in the United States. So we were at like peak savings rates for the United States. And then as the pandemic has waned and people have been let go to go spend however they want to, they've immediately gone back to a consumer debt, consumption, capitalism type of lifestyle. And that's not a political statement or negative statement whatsoever. Everyone, personal finances are personal. You can do whatever you want to with your own money. However, the national image is that credit card debt right now is at its peak, and post-pandemic savings is currently at one of the lowest points it has been in a very long time. So people are afraid of home ownership. I don't doubt that. But why are you not afraid of your consumer debt? Why are you not afraid of your car loans that we have normalized in this country? And I'm bringing this up because if someone that you are working with is not able to buy a home, a lot of them, it's because of their own financial decisions, their own, not necessarily life events like you said, but more life decisions and choices that they're making on a day-to-day basis. Right. If you have an auto loan what's the auto loan percentage rate? 4 or 5%. You have a credit 6%. Card. Right. So 6%, you have a credit card debt. That's right now, the average credit card debt right now in the United States is 19%. Right. So if you have a 19% credit card debt, a 6% car, why aren't you buying a house? Why don't you pay that stuff off? And why don't you put money towards something that actually matters? So I think getting really real on personal finances, making sure that your own house is in order, and talking to people about, look, you're getting in your own way. Right. With all due respect. I think this is, like, once again, it's a bigger picture that can be granularized down to a much smaller one as well.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's ultimately a one-on-one conversation, right? So we are at our time. Let's see. Terry had a question. Where are these updates posted? Niali posts them on the Heart of Atlanta group's YouTube page. So go there and you'll see all the industry updates are sort of grouped together in a playlist. And Stephanie says diapers, diplomas, diamonds, divorce, and death, the 5 Ds. And I love it because that's absolutely the case. So thank you for that, Stephanie. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Niali.